Welcome to Decision 2025, NewTV's live election night coverage for Newton's municipal election. I'm Jenn Adams. Tonight we will hear what the voters had to say on who will be the next mayor, city councilors, and school committee members, and if the winter parking ban will remain in effect this winter. Our guests tonight will start with Mayor Ruthanne Fuller, who is not seeking re-election as mayor, former Ward 7 school committee member Matt Hills, who will be joined by Ward 5 city councilor Bill Humphrey, former Ward 5 City Councilor-at-Large Deb Crossley, and current Ward 3 School Committee member Anping Shen, followed by current Ward 8 City Councilor-at-Large Rick Lipof and President of the Charles River Regional Chamber, Greg Reibman. We also have Newton News reporter Gina Dacey out in the field, as well as Brian McGonigle from the Newton Beacon. They will be sharing interviews and speeches throughout the night. Before we get started with the mayor, I'd like to take a moment to share a video NewTV put together about former Mayor Setti Warren, who unexpectedly passed away on Sunday, November 2nd, at the age of 55. It was 16 years ago that Setti Warren was elected as the state's and Newton's first African-American mayor. He was mayor for 2 terms before moving over to the Harvard Kennedy School. I and NewTV send our deepest sympathy to his wife, 2 children, and the rest of his family and friends.
First, I want to say how thrilled I am to have the opportunity to be the mayor-elect here of the city that I love, that I've grown up in, and I am ecstatic about serving the people of Newton.
New Year's Day 2010 was a historic day for the city of Newton. Elected by popular vote, the city inaugurated the first African-American mayor in the Commonwealth, Mayor Setti Warren.
I, Setti D. Warren, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, so help me God. No other city can boast of the passion and commitment we have to our neighbors, to our community, to our future. I'm prepared to make the tough decisions that will be necessary and recognize that some people will oppose each and every decision I make. But doing nothing is not an option.
With so much passion for the city, it's no wonder that conflicting viewpoints sometimes turn personal and venomous, something Warren wants to turn around and instead really listen to each other.
Over the past few years, this has kept us from moving forward as a community. As arguments became rancorous, decisions were deferred, and solutions that were once within reach no longer seem so. I ask that this inauguration be called Coming Together.
This inauguration made history not only with its first black mayor, but the amount of people who were in attendance.
There's not a parking space to be found out there, so I think it's a tribute to Setti and the campaign that he ran, and that he just brings a whole new, fresh approach to Newton. So I think that the people in Newton are very excited, and I think it's just a tremendous outpouring for him today.
The Newtonians who came before us understood we must invest in people, and that Newton could lead the nation in innovation, education, and providing the chance for people of all backgrounds to be successful. They had a vision of what Newton should look like for future generations, and they knew that actualizing that vision was part of their responsibility as citizens. And this, my friends, is the challenge we face today. We must set a path for Newton's future generations. We must embrace the legacy of those who came before us by building a sustainable model city for this century.
Joining me in the studio is current Mayor Ruthanne Fuller, who has served as city councilor for 8 years prior to her 2 terms as the first woman mayor of Newton when elected in 2017. Thank you for joining me, Mayor. It's great to have you. And seeing that video is definitely a tough and heartbreaking thing to see.
A beautiful tribute to the NewTV team. You captured so much of what was important to Setti. And yes, Sunday was a really tough day, certainly for Tassie and Abigail and John, but to so many people across our community, and I would actually say across the United States.
I agree with that statement fully. But back in December of 2024, you decided to not seek re-election. Why did you choose not to keep going?
It was interesting. Setti too chose after 2 terms not to run for re-election. And I remember talking to him at length about that decision. Because I was a brand new city councilor. Your film picked up some of his inauguration speech. I was sitting there as a brand new rookie it was the Board of Aldermen then.
Correct, yeah.
And I think when he made his decision, he felt like he had gotten a lot of his goals accomplished and felt like the time was just right to move on to some other ways of serving. And I think I share that with him. I agree. Got a lot done, and happy to pass the mantle, the baton on to a new mayor who I'm sure will pick it up with gusto and perhaps still work on some of the issues that Setti worked on and that I worked on. Some are enduring here in Newton, and others are new because times change.
Let's talk about some of the things that you have accomplished over your 16 years here, but 8 years as mayor. It had some ups and downs, obviously.
Absolutely. We've all been through some really trying times.
Absolutely. But some of the good stuff that happened, a full-day kindergarten came through, renovation of 5 schools, let's see, more affordable and updated housing zoning, more bicycle and pedestrian-friendly roads, village center developments, moving, and bringing Newton Power Choice to fruition by providing municipal electric vehicles and shifting to solar and renewable energy sources, as well as Webster Woods and the MBTA Communities Act, and the latest, which will open shortly, the construction of the Cooper Center.
And I'll add one more. Feels good to hear what we together accomplished. I didn't accomplish that we as a community accomplished. My #1 goal at the state level was to have the state invest in at least one of our commuter rail stations, and we're on track for the Newtonville commuter rail station to have elevators and 2 platforms so we get accessible and frequent service.
It's quite a long list of successful stuff, but also not so pleasant memories, I guess, with COVID for one. That one was tough for just about everybody. That one was a tough one to deal with, and the whole changing of how things were supposed to run.
So all of us, I think, still have PTSD. If we were of an age, all of us lived through the pandemic together. We're still sorting out the racial reckoning after George Floyd's murder. We saw an illegal teacher strike happen in Newton. We had the Israel-Hamas war blow through the city, including gunshots fired. And the financial challenges that I think many cities and towns are facing are also facing us. So those are a bucket of things, plus social media, an erosion of confidence in so many institutions. And I'd say the Pandora's box has been opened in terms of ugliness, just in general, and civil discourse. So we're living in tough times.
Where do you see, well, I guess is there anything you didn't get to do as mayor that you would have liked to have done?
Always, there's always more to do. It's such a great community. And you heard Setti Warren say it in his remarks on your tape. Knitting our neighbors together, our 13 villages together, particularly in a world of increasing divisiveness. It was a challenge 16 years ago for him. It was a challenge 8 years ago for me. I think it is again a challenge for the new mayor. We have to keep working on believing in each other and treating each other as we want others to treat us.
Do you see that actually coming to fruition slowly, or do you think it's kind of dividing more on, not just in Newton, but in statewide, national level?
I think, unfortunately, it's actually gotten worse. I think social media has undermined that clicking away on your cell phone or your laptop. A lot of us have taken permission to write some things that perhaps we shouldn't. And you see a city council that's very divided, a school committee that's divided, a nation that's divided. Newton is, I think, the best place in the world to live, but we are not immune from those same forces.
So, regarding this election, and there has been some pretty good discourse, I guess, overall. But have you endorsed anyone for mayor or other candidates? Is there anyone that's on your radar?
It's an interesting decision when you're a sitting mayor or running for mayor, whether to endorse. Both when I was running for mayor and now as a sitting mayor, I have chosen not to endorse. It's an interesting decision, pros and cons. Mm-hmm. For me, I've always felt like I have to work with every city councilor, every school committee member, and as mayor, serve all individuals and residents here. I am not the mayor of the right or the left. I am everybody's mayor. Mm-hmm. So I chose not to endorse.
I was just curious if you had.
Right.
In terms of goals that, that Newton should look towards, or issues that Newton should focus on for the future. Right. You did name a few, but are there other ones out there that we should really be paying attention to?
So we still have challenges in front of us. I think we have modest growth in revenues and, understandably, in Newton in particular, high expectations, so that we're going to have to keep prioritizing. I always prioritize the schools, and yet sometimes even I felt frustrated that there weren't even more monies. I was happy to put my political capital on the line and work hard for an override. The operating override didn't pass. Mm-hmm. We still have lingering effects from that. So I think there are financial constraints that can be uncomfortable. We can't do everything we want to do. I'd say also, the big buckets of housing and transportation, economic development, climate change, open space and green space, recreation, quality of life, cost of living are still, they're challenges. Can we do it? Absolutely. I have great confidence in our residents and in this community, but it does require us to work together on each of those, and they each have slightly different, I think, solutions.
Mm-hmm. Do you think we can find those solutions somehow, some way?
Absolutely. I have confidence in democracy. I have confidence in our Commonwealth. I have confidence in Newton. But I would add, though, it takes action. The status quo isn't good enough. We have to act differently, have different goals, move forward. And I would say change is always hard, but we have to embrace change and action.
What are some of your favorite memories, whether as a Board of Aldermen, City Councilor, or Mayor, you've been here for, serving Newton for 16 years, so you must have quite a few
What
good
a
memories.
lovely question. I'd say the sweet spot is always something with kids. It could be the 3-year-olds that are coming into City Hall for Time for Partners. It could be the Boy Scouts or Cub Scout groups that I've met with going out to the schools. The questions from the teenagers, our high schoolers, oh, they are so bright, so impressive. So give me a kid and I'm always happy. That would be number one.
But they are fun. In terms of, I guess, the hardest time, would you say it was the teachers' strike? Just because it, as you said, it was illegal at the time and you were blamed basically for it happening.
Certainly the teachers' strike was very hard for the teachers, by the way. This was not easy for them. Very hard for the parents, really hard for the children who missed, I think, 15 days of school. But no, the pandemic was much, as hard as the strike was, it was not life and death. During the pandemic, particularly those early weeks where we had residents dying, there was a day where we had so many ambulances going at an older care facility. It was mind-blowing. So the pandemic, we had no blueprint. We didn't understand what COVID was initially. Remember the days where there was no vaccine. We're trying to figure out, how do you stay healthy? And understandably, the guidance kept changing along the way as we learned more. The isolation, for older residents and our youngest residents, the two end of the spectrum in particular. So the pandemic had to be the hardest months while I was mayor.
And the effects are still being felt today, especially for kids who are in school.
Yes,
they're kind of behind.
We are, I think, they're behind in two different ways. I think certainly you're seeing it academically, but also socially, emotionally. I think it really hit our youngsters particularly hard. And I think for our youngsters, COVID shook everything, but surround that with things like school shootings, climate change. They're really trying to figure out what is this world and what are the adults in my generation, what have we left for them? And I think there's a lot of soul searching going on.
For everyone. In terms of you leaving at the end of this year, obviously it will be over. What's next for you?
Oh, aren't you nice to ask? It's lovely. I have some great options in front of me. Stay tuned. I'm still feeling quite healthy. Good. And feel like service is still what is most meaningful to me. A little more time for my family. Some grandkids there and my poor husband. I kind of have abandoned him for 9 years now. So I owe Joe a whole bunch and seeing my kids too. So service and family, I think, will be the key elements.
So we'll still be seeing you around Newton?
I'm living here. I believe in this community. I love this community. I think those of us who are privileged to be here in Newton, we are just among the luckiest people in the world.
What else would you like to say to your constituency since you've been here for quite some time, and not just in office, but even living as a neighbor?
I'd say a few things. Deep, deep gratitude for giving me this privilege to try to pull our community together. I'll also just add, in addition to gratitude, for the staff at City Hall, the staff in our schools. Remember that they are really trying hard. Be a little gentler with all our employees and the Newton Public Schools, and our police and fire department, our DPW folks, our city council staff. They care deeply, they work hard, they have good intentions.
In terms of next, what do you think should be the main focus of the candidates for school committee as well as city councilors? What should they really be focusing on in the next 2-year terms?
Say a few things. Certainly, everything about our schools matter. Our young people, it's our core value. We will have to work within financial constraints, so figuring out how to prioritize. Be willing to consider an override, because that opens up more possibilities for our educators to do more and to do better. It's hard. Times are tough right now. Everybody's feeling challenged financially or anxious about the future. So it's a lot to ask, but I'd invite people to keep an open mind and think about it. Housing, transportation, climate change, taking care of our vulnerable. Those are what I think is at the core of Newton's values and what we need to keep focusing on.
In terms of our village centers, you've done a lot to bring them up to, I guess, up to snuff.
Right. Although, shop local, everybody. It's very easy to use Amazon or go to a big box. Our village centers really matter, and that should be your first stop when you need something. Go there.
In terms of also the village centers, you've got your police departments and your fire departments who have been working well and being community oriented, going into the village centers, making sure that things are working properly. That, as well as housing within the village centers, creating more. That's something that I'm guessing should be a priority for the future.
It is. It makes so much sense to build around public transit. You know, we're blessed with so many green line stops and the commuter rail. If you can shop and live right there and walk, or use public transit, it's better in every way. So I'm thrilled that we have the MBTA village center overlay districts, right, all working out. But we do need to move forward with those. And I would also add 70% of our new revenue growth comes from housing related. We're a fully built out city. The opportunities to add more commercial space are limited. So we need to add housing and support our current retailers and restaurants and office spaces.
And then Newton will be thriving once again.
Oh, not once again, we are thriving and continue to thrive.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate you coming in. And like I said before, I wish you much success in the future. Thank you for all your effort.
Can I put in one plug for NewTV?
Of course.
News sources are really diminishing in Newton, across Massachusetts, and NewTV. You in particular, Jen, thankfully you have anchored the news for a long time.
Yes.
We need NewTV. You're really important, and I'm grateful to you.
Thank you, Mayor. We wish you, of course, from all of us here at NewTV, we wish you a very happy, healthy, and bright future.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. The polls close in just a few minutes, and we will have the results for the 8 contested races. Let's take a look at those races. Voters get to pick one of the 2 candidates for the Ward 2 School Committee, Christian Fisher or Linda Swain. Voters get to pick 2 of the 3 candidates for the Ward 4 Councilor-at-Large, incumbent Josh Krinsman, John Chamanis, and Cyrus Damubed. Excuse me if I said it wrong. As Councilor Lenny Gentile is not seeking re-election, voters in Ward 5 can pick for their next Ward Councilor, Julie Irish or Garrett Miller, as current Ward 5 Councilor Bill Humphrey is not seeking re-election. And all voters can vote for the next Ward 5 School Committee member, either Jenna Mayora or Ben Schlesinger. 3 candidates are vying for the Ward 6 Councilor-at-Large seat, Lisa Gordon, Ted Gross, and Sean Roach. Voters across the city can vote for 2, as Councilors Vicki Danberg and Alan Lobovitz are not seeking re-election. And 2 candidates are running for the Ward 6 School Committee, Molly Brote and Jonathan Green. 2 candidates are running for the Ward 8 School Committee seat, Victor Lee and Jim Murphy, but you can only vote for 1. And voters will decide who Newton's next mayor will be, either Al Cecchinelli or President of the City Council, Marc Laredo. And there is also a ballot question about the overnight winter parking ban. A yes vote will repeal the overnight winter parking ban, and a no vote will keep the ban in place. Decision 2025 will be back with former Ward 7 School Committee member and Chair Matt Hills and current Ward 5 City Councilor Bill Humphrey. But NewTV went out to the polling locations today and spoke with a few people about who they are supporting and what major issues Newton's elected officials should work on.
Yes, I'm Andy Gluck. I am supporting Marc Laredo. He has been a city councilor and a school committee member, and I think he's got great experience and commitment to the city of Newton, and I think he'll do a really good job. To me, the 2 are so intertwined. Number 1 is public education, which Newton believes in and is committed to and is really the backbone and strength of this community. And number 2 is housing, not just affordable housing, but what I sometimes think of as targeted housing. So I think we need more housing for teachers and firemen and policemen, first responders, as opposed to just affordable housing and just, as we know, very expensive housing here in Newton. That would be my wish.
Jack Lovett. Well, I'm here for the Repeal the Parking Ban campaign. Honestly, I've lived in Newton for about 20 years now. I've always thought the ban was outdated. I've had a negative impact on so many people, and in the last few years it's had an impact on myself. So I think it's past time this ban's repealed, and that's why I'm out here today. But I think we need to do more in terms of economic development in our city. I think in terms of building enough housing. So I know so many people my age who grew up in Newton in the 2000s and 2010s who can't afford to move back here. And it's not because we have bad salaries, it's because housing's completely out of control. So I want to build a city where people who grew up here have the ability to stay here, where people actually want to move here to attend our schools. And I think building enough housing and really, and also increasing our tax base is going to be really key to making that happen.
Jonathan Beta-Haron. I'm supporting the question to repeal the parking ban. Schools, I like to have good schools. My kids went through the schools, and I'd like to see the schools serving younger people as well.
My name is Corey Bohans. I'm supporting John Chaimanis. I'm supporting John because John is someone I consider to be an ethical man and a moral man, a man who stands up for everyone, a man who believes in true principles of equality. And he also is an expert in the area of green technology and understanding sustainability. I believe that with Newton's core values of green energy and sustainability, John would understand exactly how to help implement those things with the least negative economic impact possible. while understanding that there are residents in this city who are not, six-figure residents who can't afford the drastic implementation of some things. But at the same time, John is an industry professional in sustainability and green industry, and he knows exactly how things get done, and I think he would understand the timing of those things better than any one of the existing councilors or any of the other contenders for the city council. Honestly, development is a no-brainer. We must have development. But right now, the development that is happening is absolutely erratic, irresponsible, and there are perfectly occupiable units being torn down so that developers can tear down a single-family home to put up 6 condo units. That's not okay. The reason it's not okay is because the condo units they're putting up are selling for $1.5 million or more. That's not affordable. You know, the MBTA Communities Act and the Village District rezoning were not designed to price people out of Newton, but that's the result that is happening with those 2 pieces of legislation. And if we're looking to do things that are best for the people of Newton, we have to understand that those 2 pieces of legislation are harming residents, not helping them. You're gentrifying people out of homes that they could otherwise afford by dangling a carrot on a stick to generational families for $1.5 million or $2 million on a family home. They have to take it. I understand why they have to take it. It would be foolish not to. But the unfortunate fruit of that is that people who are buying those units are not already residents of Newton, and they're people who are of more affluent means than the people who are already here, and people are being forced out of their homes and out of their rental units and out of every other thing here. It's just not the right thing for Newton, and it's not the right thing for Newton residents who have been here for 3 or 4 generations and are being completely priced out of a home. And the disparity amongst villages is obvious to some of us who live in the villages who don't make as much money as the other villages. It's not happening in Chestnut Hill. It's not happening in Newton Center. It's happening in Nonantum and Newtonville and other villages where families are of more modest means. They're being developed out of existence. That's not the idea between development, for development. The idea for development is to make more units and to have them affordable. But when you're making more units and not a one of them is affordable, how is that at all ethical?
Welcome back to Decision 2025, NewTV's election night coverage. I'm Jenn Adams. The polls are now closed, and we will start bringing you those results once they start coming in. But joining me in the studio now is former Ward 7 School Committee Chair and member Matt Hills and current Ward 5 City Councilor Bill Humphrey, who is not seeking re-election this year. Thank you both for joining me tonight. It's a pleasure to have you both.
Thank you.
So Bill, I'm going to start with you first, because after the 2023 municipal election, you decided that this would be your last term.
Yeah, that's correct.
Why did you decide to end? I mean, I know that you were running for other things, but was that the plan when you made this choice?
Yeah, I had decided pretty early on that. I think there were a number of factors that went into that decision. One of the big things was there were a number of my colleagues that I had worked very closely with over the first 4 years who were no longer there after that point. It was a very different experience going forward. I knew it would be. I think, certain things came up that were surprising even beyond that, but I felt like, 6 years was a significant percentage of my life. I'm the youngest member of the council currently, and so, you have to factor that in. And there were some other things I wanted to do. I'm not ruling out, come back at some point, but this year, this cycle didn't seem like it made a lot of sense for what I wanted to be doing next and how I want to serve the community.
What was your favorite part about your service to the city, and maybe not so great?
Well, I love doing constituent services work, and I love being able to help people with kind of the little issues. That's one of the fun parts about being a ward councilor in particular, right, as opposed to a citywide official. And there were certainly a lot of very unusual opportunities to do that kind of work, especially during all of the tremendous uncertainty at the beginning of the pandemic. I mean, none of us could have predicted that, and that hit right after I was sworn in, 2 months later. So I did have a lot of really enjoyable experiences helping people out with things, and I think many of us in local government feel that when things are going in a direction that we don't have a lot of control over at the national level, and we're kind of upset and concerned about that, it's nice to be able to go fix something on somebody's street and be able to see that result happening. So certainly a lot there, and I'm focusing on the positives right now about that.
That sounds good. And Matt, you served on the school committee from 2010 to 2018.
Yes.
And you've continued your commitment to the schools as you're now vice chair of the Massachusetts
Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, the State Board of Ed, yeah.
What made you decide to become a member of that?
I mean, it goes back a while to a very strong commitment, I think, that I've had and that Lisa and I have had to public education, both as public education students when we were younger, and we certainly opted very consciously to send our kids to the public schools here instead of Jewish day schools. And we've always had a strong commitment to public schools and public education. On a broader scale, that's where most of the students are in the country. And if you want in public district schools, and if you want to start addressing some of the inequities and some of the gaps that exist, you can only do it through good, strong public district school policy. Other public schools and private schools play a role, other types of public schools, but it's the district schools that are where most of the students are, and that's where most of the effort has to go.
Well, you've been what else have you been doing? Because you've kind of been off the radar, but not quite. So I'm sure people at home would probably like to know what else you've been up to.
Well, I've had my career, and I continue my career at this point. For the most part, other than some nonprofit board work, I serve on a number of corporate boards in the U.S. and Canada, previously in Israel as well. I've got, as I said, the nonprofit boards that I'm on, and I enjoy getting involved from time to time in Newton elections and Newton politics.
And are you currently
involved?
No.
I am. So full disclosure, Marc Laredo and I are very close friends. Have been for many years. I've been his treasurer since he first ran for school committee in 2001, when we were young pups as parents at Ward School, and we've continued to have a very close personal and political relationship. And I've actively supported a number of the school committee candidates in this election as well.
Bill, what about you in terms of candidates that are currently running? Have you, supported any of them along the way?
Yeah, I didn't make any official endorsements this year, but in my capacity as a political consultant and graphic designer, I did a little bit of work at the beginning with helping 3 of the school committee candidates kind of get their campaigns off the ground. Wasn't really involved beyond that in those campaigns. I've actually been focused on various other things. I started a master's degree in history at UMass Boston, and so that's been taking up a lot of my time. So actually pretty quiet election cycle for me this year compared to, I was thinking back through trying to think if there was an election day that was this quiet for me, and I couldn't really think of one, so yeah.
Yeah, at least you're keeping busy one way or another. In terms of moving forward, what issues should Newton be focusing on for the future? Either one of you or both of you can answer. You may have same answers, you may have different.
Yeah, I think, we don't know yet how some of these races are going to turn out, and I would say it almost doesn't even matter in some cases in terms of your question, what are the big issues that are coming? I think a lot of the things that have been on voters' minds in recent years are not going away, no matter who wins the elections for any offices in the city. The fiscal challenges certainly remain immense, and as they say, everything in politics is about the money and where the money is going, and where your budgets have prioritized things. And the money is certainly, unless there's a dramatic change in fiscal policy of the city, which could happen, or some other event transpires, the pension situation is going to continue to put a squeeze on things, and until that point, which wouldn't be until the next mayoral term, things are going to be pretty tight across a lot of different departments. Certainly people saw that with the schools, but it's not limited to the schools. And so anybody, mayor, councilors, school committee members, they're going to be really grappling with that and trying to satisfy voters who've got a lot of different priorities of things they think are really important and frankly are important.
Matt, what about you? What do you think are the big ones?
I think Bill did a really nice job summing it up. I mean, what are the 2 most overriding issues that are always on the radar screen citywide, or three, I guess: the quality of the schools, the financial condition and financial constraints of the city, and development. I mean, those are, whether you want to kind of tie zoning to that or not, I mean, those are the overwhelming issues. Yeah, as the next mayor has to make sure he delivers city services and all that, but those are the difficult issues that involve significant trade-offs. And virtually every municipality in the state is facing significant financial issues right now. And that doesn't even begin to dial in the rollback in federal funds that does not look like it's going to dissipate, and the pressure that's going to come on the state budget. We've had a nice bit of wind at our back in terms of state funding, particularly for Chapter 70, which is local education funding, and to a lesser extent aid to cities and towns, and that wind at our back is beginning to die down a little. So the next mayor, whoever it is, probably Marc, is going to have to deal with incredibly high expectations for the schools, pressure for more development, and the trade-off between development for development's sake and affordable housing, and the financial pressures and the significant problems that that creates in being able to fund what people want in the city.
Sounds like it'll be somewhat, I mean, we can't predict today what will happen tomorrow, but it's kind of.
It's what people like Bill
yeah.
sign up for when they run
Right.
for the city council.
And I think that's an interesting point. This year, there's been a huge amount of turnover in a lot of these seats, and I think that's in part a direct reflection of how challenging the environment has gotten. I mean, on the one hand, there's challenges around, that many candidates across the country are facing, where the discourse has gotten pretty heated and people, are often discouraged from running because of that. But I think you look at something like the budget situation here, and I think there was one candidate who ended up not sticking in the race, who said, if I do this, if I run, am I just going into a buzzsaw here? And I think other candidates echoed that as well, of that feeling of, well, am I going to be able to do anything? And certainly, it seems pretty likely that Marc Laredo is going to be elected the mayor, but he is going to face very high expectations from a broad coalition of people, and it's going to be the challenge of his career to be able to meet those different expectations from different people, especially given the constrained finances.
I just want to add one thing. I mean, again, Bill summed it up perfectly. There's no magic pill that Marc can take that's going to solve all these issues in a way that meets all the expectations. And I think part of what Marc, or as the next mayor, is going to have to do is articulate very clearly his priorities, the trade-offs he's making, the financial constraints he has, and why he's making the recommendations that he's making. Otherwise, all he's going to do is just disappoint people, and people aren't going to know why. But there's no way around it. There's limited resources under the best of times. There's more limited resources now and going forward. And that's before we start dialing in the impact of federal cutbacks. I mean, we keep thinking of the shutdown as what's causing the cutbacks. We haven't even gotten to the next year's budget from the federal government, which is probably not going to be particularly helpful to the things that get funded in Massachusetts. So it is what it is, and it has to be dealt with by our elected leaders.
And with those financial constraints, is an override most likely going to be asked in the near future? Or is it even possible, or would even one ask for it, considering those constraints?
Well, certainly I don't have any insight into, Councilor Laredo's thinking on this. If I were in the shoes of the position of having to take on the role of mayor, it seems almost inevitable, just because the financial situation is so constrained. Now, sometimes mayors in that position will weigh, well, maybe it's not the right time, maybe the economy is not great and people won't, give us that extra revenue, because it can be tight for a lot of people to meet those new tax obligations. On the other hand, we've seen a number of communities around the state that did pass very large overrides this year, even as all of the tariff chaos was happening and everything like that. So, sometimes voters recognize, well, it's just the reality here. I think there were some very real repercussions that happened as a result of the most recent operating override not passing. I think the voters have seen that, and potentially a new mayor in office, maybe they reconsider that if that's put forward. But on the other hand, sometimes a mayor wants to work on some other stuff first and hopefully get to an override later. But I don't have any insight into his thoughts on that, really.
Mm-hmm. I'll add something. There's no bombshell I have to announce on behalf of Marc, and I wouldn't do that anyway. I would doubt Marc is going to take office having already thought about timing of an override, but it's hard to ignore the concept of an override. And what you have in Marc is someone who's worked on, the two of us did this together with a number of other people, 3 different overrides. And I always like to remind people that, on the yes side, obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, on the yes side, in 2013, everything that could possibly be in our favor was in our favor for those overrides. The economy, the popularity of Setti, who recently passed away, the money was all being used for new things, contracts had all been settled, and those 3 questions passed by a grand total of 54 to 55% each. That was with every last thing going our way. That was a Newton landslide. That's what constitutes a landslide here. So there's kind of the financial question, does an override fit into our needs for additional revenue? But there's a political question, and this is what Bill's talking about. To do an override, let's say we're in the middle of a severe recession, for example, not a good thing. To do an override to fund structural deficits, that may be needed. That's a very, very difficult sell to voters to get it passed. The formula to get something passed is the financial house is in order. Look at the new money, every last dollar of it, or virtually every last dollar, is going for something new. That's difficult. It's easy for me to say. That's really, really difficult to do. Mm-hmm. And that's why we elect folks like Marc to be mayor, and Bill and 23 other, or soon to be 24 other members of the city council. These are difficult decisions. But just saying let's do an override, that doesn't help. Mm-hmm. you have to line things up, because you can't just do an override. You have to get people to vote for it, and they're not going to vote for it if you don't line things up, and it takes a while.
And certainly you cannot separate the politics from the fiscal situation, because when I was going around knocking doors for the most recent override, there would be a lot of folks saying, well, yeah, we probably do need some more money, but my road didn't get paved yet. And so until my road gets paved, I'm not voting for additional money. Now, I might come back and say, well, it might help your road get done faster if we had some additional money, but hey, I understand where they're coming from. I understand the frustration there. And if you don't take care of some of those things, it can create a sort of cycle of undermined confidence from the voters, and that can be a really tough cycle to break out of, and sometimes it's got to be about projecting a vision of here's where we'd like to go, rather than I don't think we can do this. And that's always a tough balance when you have to balance the budget, and you are the strong mayor form of government. There's nobody else, it's all on you, and you've got to somehow come up with funding for all these different programs. And the other thing I encountered all the time when knocking on doors during that is people would have a list of things they didn't think were important to fund, but it didn't line up with anybody else's list, right? They'd say 10 different things, and then somebody else would say 10 different things, mm-hmm. and the things that the first person said were unimportant, that was really important to that other person, and that type of thing I think is pretty common.
So in terms of, I guess, Bill, you were one of the few city councilors that were supporting the teachers' strike. I guess we could kind of go back, because that was a big thing, 15 days without school. Mm-hmm. In terms of that particular aspect of Newton and COVID, those two were, I guess, well, COVID definitely wins in being the worst thing that could have happened to Newton, and actually the world at that matter. But for the teachers' strike, what made you decide to get involved? I know you explained it while you were out there, but
yeah,
just...
I think that situation was one of those many situations that builds up for a long time before it gets to that point. There's many factors that go into that, and it's easy to paint convenient narratives one way or another that are very simple. Usually it's not simple. Sometimes it is about big structural forces, and sometimes it really comes down to individual personality clashes and things like that building up over the years. I think you also can't separate it from the pandemic, right? I think that there were some issues in prior contract cycles and things like that that had led to some negative feeling, but certainly the educational environment changed for everybody, and that included for the educators, and many of them were expressing extreme frustration about what was going on inside the classrooms. Were they being given enough support on that? And they felt like they weren't being heard, and that was their sort of break glass in case of emergency way of expressing that feeling. It was a very, very tough situation for everyone, and certainly I think the teachers were aware of that as well and felt that themselves. Nobody was happy about it. Nobody was thrilled to be, in that situation, and I think that we have to hope that there is some improvement in relations in both directions from our elected officials, from our teachers, from everybody to avoid that happening again. And some of it does at the end of the day come back to that same money question that we've been talking about all evening here, which is just what do you do when you're constrained in your revenues? Mm-hmm. The growth is capped to some extent. You can argue here and there over some of the percentages around new growth or what have you, but at the end of the day, there really is kind of a finite amount of money. And are you giving people raises? Are you maintaining staff levels if those are in conflict? And there's not a lot of easy solutions here. I happen to think from the vantage point of the Finance Committee, which I had served on for 5 years at that point, that there were options that weren't being exercised. Obviously, I think it would have helped to have had the override in that situation. But clearly, based on the outcome, it wasn't entirely just about compensation. There were also some other significant demands around support services and additional aides and supporting the aides better and things like that, the paraprofessionals. That ended up being a lot of the outcome, and I think we've seen that in many other districts. Certainly, I don't want it to sound like there was some sort of Newton-specific issue here entirely. I think certainly there were particular factors that led to it, but we're seeing this type of conflict in other places, and different communities have different ways of resolving it. And that is sort of one of the tools in the tool bag that comes up from time to time in our society as a way of expressing some pretty severe discontent.
It was an intense 2 weeks as well. It was interesting that kids had to go through that, even though it was, well, as you say, the points are well taken, but maybe not necessary to go that far. Obviously, it worked out in the end, so I guess with the new, basically we're going to have a brand new school committee coming in with mm-hmm. two who have been on. One is fairly new, one term, but then you've got another one who's been there. I believe this will be her last term. What do you think the school committee can do to perhaps avoid something like that in the future?
You want to talk to the school committee member, former?
Yes.
There's nothing magic here. Mm-hmm. I mean, Bill said something important, regardless of whether you didn't say this part, but I think, regardless of when one supported the strike or not, what Bill's saying is there has to be kind of a change in the dynamic here, because we can't go through this again. The state may take actions that help prevent strike. Remember, strikes are illegal. Mm-hmm. And whether
unlawful.
Right.
Whatever the difference is, it's breaking the law for public sector employees to strike. But it's been happening on a more concerted effort with the affiliates of the Mass Teachers Association. That's not lost on anyone at the state level, including but not limited to the Board of Education. On the other hand, that doesn't just solve the problem. You have to be able to reach accommodations. The school committee has to reach accommodations. There's no magic way to do it. I mean, there's no kind of potion you can take that says this is how negotiators, whether it's foreign policy, whether it's collective bargaining, whether it's anything, this is how you magically do it. It just has to be done, because that's what leaders do. I mean, I dealt with many of the same people for my 8 years on the school committee, mm-hmm. all of which I was on the collective bargaining team. It's the same people. It's particularly unpleasant at times, but people have their inside voices and their outside voices. And their outside voices, there's a lot of yelling and screaming. And the inside voices, if there's a good dynamic, you can get things done. What has come out of that strike and COVID and some of the other things with the Mass Teachers Association is leading, among other things in Newton, to changes in the school committee. You have people who have basically they're fried. They don't want to serve 8 years on the school committee. You have a whole bunch of new people, and some of those issues, including the strike, were particularly front and center in some of the races for school committee. So there's some early results in.
Is this the unofficial results?
This is beyond unofficial, but there's like people sitting there with, I'm just leaving this so like we can all see, people kind of putting numbers into an app. These are not city results. I'm not taking responsibility, but it's like in the old days when you used to pull the tapes out of, that were Scotch taped to the wall when a polling location closed, and you'd call into a central place. Now it just goes into an app. And as of now, with on the school committee side, with 65 to 75% of the precincts reporting. This is unofficial. It looks like Linda Swain in Ward 2 has a significant lead over Christine Fisher. This is school committee. Ben Schlesinger has a comfortable lead over Jenna Miara, and Jonathan Green has also a pretty significant lead over Molly and Molly Brott, and Victor Lee, very significant lead over Jim Murphy. Marc is shockingly way ahead in the race for mayor. Sorry, I had to say that. And it looks like, at least according to this, Maria Greenberg has been declared the winner in Ward 1 for the Ward 1 councilor race. JJ
opponent dropped out in that one.
Yeah.
Opponent dropped out, but not in.
Right,
I don't even understand what it means to drop out, like when your
you're still
name
on
is
the
still
ballot.
on the
Yeah,
ballot.
sure, yeah.
And interestingly, the referendum, the no side, with 75% of the precincts counted, which no would keep the ban in place.
Correct.
The no side is ahead by about 350 votes. There's about 8,000 no votes. Again, no keeps it in place, and they're ahead by about 350. So I think if I look at like the school committee races, for example, what Jenna, Molly, and Jim Murphy need to do in order to win is run up the score in wards 5 and 6. That's a voter-rich territory. There's a general view, which is not always correct because it varies by precinct, and you could speak to this better than me, as a ward councilor, but there's a general view, they're, quote, more liberal districts, more liberal wards. The problem is they're running against candidates from Ward 5 and 6 who are also, very moderate candidates. And there's not enough votes if they don't run up the score in those wards.
I was just going to briefly comment, one of the really interesting features of the election this year has been how many new candidates there are, and I don't mean that in the sense of new to running for political office. I mean new in some cases to the city as a whole, especially if you include folks that had thought about running and then ultimately didn't and so forth, that kind of thing. That is another development, and I think maybe speaks to some of the turmoil in the city that some of the folks that might have thought about running have said, you know what, I'm going to stick this one out, and somebody else decided, well, let me see if I can contribute to the community. I just got here, but I'm really enthusiastic about helping out, and that's great as well. But in some cases, that's going to be kind of an insurmountable barrier, regardless of where they come down politically, because they just haven't met as many people yet. So that could be a factor in some of the races as well this year.
I guess we'll find out in a couple of years, but our time is now up, guys. It's felt like instant.
Thank you for serving, by the way.
Oh,
Yes, thank you very
what you
much.
said is unfortunately true, and you did it. You did it for 6 years, so thank you.
Yes, and thank you both for coming on. It was great to see you both. Up next, former City Councilor Deb Crossley and Ward 3 School Committee member Anping Shen will be joining me on the set in a few minutes. This afternoon, we spoke with a few people at polling locations across the city. So let's hear what they have to say about repealing the winter overnight parking ban. Stay tuned to Decision 2025.
But I'm supporting the repeal of the parking ban campaign. I've been a Newton resident for 20 years. I've always thought it's outdated, an inconvenience for many people, inequitable for many more residents. And I think it's time for repeal. So I'm out here holding this sign and hoping voters out here agree with me.
Great question. I have to honestly say this was the hardest element of the whole election cycle because I wavered back and forth, not being quite sure which side of the argument was going to win my vote. And at the end of the day, I decided to vote yes to repeal it, to hope that some changes can happen to make the overall parking situation in Newton a little bit better.
Great.
Yeah, I think it's well overdue. I think that there's been, I saw quite a bit of this misinformation, certainly in my congregation. There were people who were talking about, for example, the narrow streets of the wintertime when the police department and the fire department have both reported to the city that it's a non-issue as long as there can be a snow emergency. So it's very interesting to see how even people of similar mindsets can disagree about something as simple as a parking ban.
I believe that to repeal the parking ban would be 100% irresponsible. The city services right now already have their hands full in the situations where the parking ban is beneficial. The parking ban is from 2 to 6 a.m. I mean, that's a 4-hour window. If you can't not have your car on the street in a 4-hour window, that's an extremely unfortunate scenario where either you bought a property that you own that doesn't have off-street parking, which is not something that should be allowed in my opinion, my personal opinion, or you're a renter and your landlord shouldn't be allowed to have you owning a car and not having a place to park it off-street in the winter. The city services, if you look at what happens in the city of Boston and other places, when they can't move a car, they have to plow around it or they have to tow the car. Neither thing is a great way to handle things. To make sure that there are no cars on the street is the responsible thing to do to begin with. And not for nothing, several of the seated city councilors have already said even if that parking ban does go through, there will be a city council policy that gets instituted after that.
Welcome back to Decision 2025. The polls are closed and the numbers are coming in slowly. To discuss what's happening in Newton is Ward 5 School Committee member Anping Shen and former City Councilor Deb Crossley. Thank you both for joining me. It's great to have you on board.
Thank you. By the way, I'm from Ward 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse
no
me.
problem.
I'm from Ward 5.
At this time, no. Okay.
Oh, too many numbers this week.
Yeah, of course, so many numbers.
So, Anping, you've had quite the roller coaster ride regarding what's happening in the schools during the 4 terms that you've been as a member of the school committee. Want to walk us through some of those obstacles like the COVID pandemic and the NTA strike?
Oh.
I know those aren't the pleasant experiences, but that was really tough.
Well, you know, I would say it's very meaningful and significant in many ways. And of course, COVID-19, no one can say anything about this enough. And certainly that was the most painful. And I still remember that when school had to close and so many emails come in. Mm-hmm. And it was a big struggle for us. And a lot of parents certainly argue for reopen schools. And then, you know, emails, just 100 emails coming every day. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, a lot of people thought this is not a good time to open. And especially, I would say, came from, you know, originally came from China. And so my network, a lot of parents who learned this from China, and they were very nervous. Mm-hmm. For them, they thought, oh, this is the best way for my kids to stay at home. So was quite a debate. And I remember one thing, by the way, I did ask school department to survey the parents to get the accurate response from parents, because sometimes when some parents are very passionate, they're articulate, but happen to be, let me quote unquote, mainstream parents. But for those immigrant parents, minority parents, the data show a little bit different. So anyway, I don't need to go into this detail, but that was 8 years COVID-19, and then the override was also very difficult, and we worked very hard, tried to educate community and to share our school, our community's perspective, why it's important to support the override, and of course, and then teacher strike, and your former, you just a moment ago, the two colleagues, two guests discussed about this, and that was most painful, let me say. And so overall, I felt this very unique experience, and I appreciate that because that's lifelong experience. And I joke with my friends, and I said, went through all three things, COVID-19, and then, override, which happened quite a few times in the Newton history. But teacher strike, that was something unprecedented as far as I know in Newton's history, right? That's so. Again, I guess I was hanging tough there. So now I was the only school committee member now hanging there for the full term. And I know other my colleagues, especially if they were full-time professionals, this was way too much for them to handle. And I could understand they just did not have this kind of opportunity to continue to serve on school committee. There might be other reasons, but I really appreciate this for the 8 years, and tremendously I feel honored and privileged to serve the community. So that's something will stay in my mind and in my heart all my life.
Well, that's good. As in terms of even dealing with some tough times, it was a good experience overall.
And you had this opportunity to work hard to serve the community, and people say to pay back to the community. My kids, was graduate from Newton school system, and I really appreciate that for my kids to have an excellent education. So this is the best thing I could do as educator myself, by the way. So.
Well, thank you very much for serving that time. Now, Deb, you've been busy around the city since you've been a city councilor. What?
I don't know how to not be busy.
So what issues have you been trying to tackle since you have been city councilor?
Okay, so not the 14 years, but the 2 years
The
since.
2 years in between, yes.
Well, I think in terms of what I've been doing in Newton, I helped to found Newton for Everyone, phase 2, I guess, because they formed to support the rezoning in 2023. And then in January of 2024, same entity, but a revised mission, broader mission, to promote housing that's needed to maintain people, invite people of all backgrounds, abilities, means into our city. And that's been very rewarding. It's a very interesting group of people who are working on it from across the city, all ages, just like our mission, all ages, means, backgrounds, and abilities. So that's been terrific. I was also telling Anping, I'm failing at retirement. I am of retirement age and beyond, and I won't say what that is, but I've taken on some more architectural clients, and for good causes, but it's still work.
Yeah. You're keeping busy, that's for
Very.
sure. Yeah. Well, I do know that we have Gina Dacey. She's over at O'Hara's, where some of our candidates and even supporters are over there. So, Gina, I'm going to send it over to you, and it looks like you're with Andrea Kelly.
Thanks, Jen. I'm here with Andrea Kelly, Ward 3 Councilor-at-Large. Andrea, can you tell me a bit about who you voted for and why?
I can. I'm here for a hopefully celebration party for people that I voted for. I'm here for Cyrus. I voted for Cyrus. I voted for Sean Roach. I voted for Gary Miller, who will be joining us, and for my current colleague, Josh Krinsman. And why I voted for them is I'm a housing advocate, and I just think creating more diverse housing options in Newton is really important for everyone. I also love that they're all civil discourse people and can contribute collaboratively to conversation. And I'm hoping that we've got some wins tonight, but we'll see.
Can you go into a little more detail about some of the issues that are important to you?
Yeah. The combination of housing and transportation and village vitality ties it with economic development, business development, how we can combine all those things to keep Newton increasingly vibrant as a community. And these candidates all exhibit the ability to have that same goal and vision in mind.
What are your thoughts on the winter parking ban?
Glad that you asked. I'm one of the original supporters of repealing the winter parking ban. We couldn't gather enough momentum on the City Council for this, so I'm really happy that these guys collected the over 10,000 signatures to get it on the ballot. I don't know how that's going to go. I hope it goes, because then we need to institute a plan to make it work in Newton. And I think it's fair for equity situation to let the streets be for the public.
Thank you so much for your time, Andrea. Back to you, Jen.
Thanks, Gina. And yes, Andrea Kelly, she's been a part of Newton for quite some time as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, she was elected the same year, I think, when I was running for school committee.
Okay.
8 years ago, right?
8 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Andrea is a particular friend of mine for over 40 years. I forget how many years, from the time before we both lived in Newton. I came in a couple years after her, and she pulled me into, with the League of Women Voters. We both were very active with the League of Women Voters for many, many years, and beyond. So we've worked together. She's a landscape designer. I'm an architect.
So it kind of goes hand in hand.
So we've worked on campaigns together. We've worked on citywide issues together, and she followed me on the council shortly after, just a few years after I started. So a lot of connections there. I'm glad she's still serving on the council. She does a good job.
Anping, I wanted to ask you and same to you, Deb, what Newton issues stick out to you guys the most going forward in Newton?
Well, I have some story to share. When I first came from China as a graduate student, I got the living situation in Newton as a kind of a overnight staff for adult group home. So basically a house to help some adults with developmental needs. That was wonderful because it offered the free room board. What can be the best things I could have as a poor graduate student? You got scholarship, but you have to pay the rent.
True.
And which is very expensive. I did not prepare well. But anyway, I work for a professor, and then he asked me, hey, where do you live? I said, I live in Newton. He said, really? You just came from China. Now you live in Newton. I live in Boston. I said, what's wrong? Live in the city. I live in suburban. In China, living in city means you're city people. You must be well established. And then he told me the story about Newton. So basically, my story to say Newton's wonderful community, I did not know that. Only after professor told me.
I see.
So I felt very blessed. And then, a year later, my wife and my son joined me. And then you see, and my son went to the early daycare, and city gave some help, and I really appreciate that. So again, my son went through the preschool, got some scholarship until the high school graduation. So 14 years in Newton school system, Newton community, and I learned all that. And I even wrote the book about my sons growing up in Newton. Because as educator, when I went back to China, people asked me, hey, how's American school going? And so I said the best way is to tell you a story about how my son grew up. He had ADHD, had some challenges. He was bullied in school, but we worked together. So he, high school, graduated from North, and he was graduation speaker. And it was a wonderful story. And of course, the challenges on school committee budget, as the former two guests just mentioned that was a huge challenge. And that's teacher strike and override. That's the override themes of both things. And of course, it was painful. Again, it was painful when, Ann Nolan, our newly hired superintendent, was leading the charge and we school committee all supported Ann Nolan to come up with the 5 scenarios for school budget, from thriving to survival budget. And that's a challenge. I think my successors, our new school committee members, will deal with that. But I'm so happy that with our Ann Nolan as the superintendent, and she started a lot of initiatives. For example, the program review, curriculum review, and those things were wonderful. And because COVID delayed a little bit, so something and teacher strike, so we could implement those initiatives. So now we are in full swing, but also the budget will be a little bit negative impact on certain things. So, but I'm on the school committee really argued we need to give full support to our new superintendent. Now she's no longer new superintendent, but a new initiative, because a lot of things we were way behind that. Because for past many years, we didn't have a chance to review the curriculum, and parents had issues, math curriculum, reading curriculum. Many parents had very concerned, and of course some said, I'm pull my kids out of school system and send to the private schools. And that happened in the COVID-19 years, but we expect they will come back, but not all of them come back.
True.
There might be many reasons. I don't want to say purely for curriculum issues or
a lot of new
quality
families
issues.
moving into Newton are deciding to send their kids to private school, and I don't think it's as much a referendum on the quality of the Newton public schools as it is the ability that the new people moving in have to do that, the financial ability. You're buying multi-million-dollar homes, and you're putting your children in the best private schools.
Before we continue on, we do have over at District 118 with Brian McGonigle of the Newton Beacon, Jake Auchincloss, our congressman from Massachusetts. Brian.
Hi, how are you? So you're here with us celebrating democracy. What does tonight mean to you in the bigger picture of democracy in this country?
I've known Marc Laredo for a decade, worked with him closely as city councilors, and I'm looking forward to working with him now as partners for Newton. In particular, we're going to ensure the completion of the upgrade for the Newtonville transit station, which is partially funded by federal dollars. I work with Ruthanne on getting that funding secured, and I'm going to work with Marc to get it constructed. And then we're also standing up for science and education. I know so many of my constituents in Newton are deeply concerned about the attack on institutions of science and learning across the country and here in Massachusetts. It affects people's livelihoods, it affects their confidence in our institutions. I know Marc and I share those values, and we're going to work together to prevent
All right. right. It seems we had a little technical difficulty there trying to hear them.
Yeah.
Perhaps we can come back and.
Well,
and
it's
see what's
interesting
going.
that you just had Jake Auchincloss on, so I'm going to try and answer your question too.
All right, please do.
And I'll reference some of what you said too. Jake, I think, is terrific at getting people's attention. He has been a communications wizard. I think one of the biggest problems, if not the biggest challenges that the city of Newton has, that city leaders have, is getting the attention of the voters. Voter apathy is the overwhelming number of citizens in our city. I don't know what the turnout will be tonight, but in the off-cycle election, it was 26%. And that was relatively high for an off-cycle election last time around. In mayor's races, it tends to be around 40%. We'll see what happens today with the referendum and so many school committee folks running. You mentioned housing. That was the first thing you talked about Anping. I'm not sure if you were just telling your story, but your story coming to Newton hinged on the availability of that particular housing. And I'm worried about our schools as enrollments continue to drop.
Yes.
And new people coming into the city are often not putting their kids into the public schools, but going to private school, as we were just saying. So enrollments are dropping steadily at about 200 kids per year, right? The cost of living here is extraordinary, and we haven't been doing enough about it. For me, that means that the city has to enable more housing, more different types of housing for different types of families and different needs, probably smaller housing because these multi-million-dollar mansions are not what most people can afford for so many reasons. But to bring in young families, even two-parent working families of who are professionals, but they're not pulling down enough money to afford a multi-million-dollar home, especially not as a first home. Our teachers are aging into retirement age, the majority of them. We know that we have the figure that it's something like 22% of our educators live in the city of Newton. We're guessing that most of them are older. That the young people, because we're hearing the stories, and we're hearing it from Newton for Everyone. We've been doing some research and had a speaker come in. And the young people are tending to move pretty far away in order to afford housing, and then they suffer these long commutes, so they're not part of our community. How long is that sustainable? If our teachers are retiring within 5 to 7 years, which Emily Prenner confirmed that number for me, she said that's pretty much when we're going to see large numbers of retirees. Then, how are we going to be able to bring in and retain young teachers as young educators as they are people too. They want to marry perhaps and have their own families and have their own home. And Newton's just out of reach. So
this is not easy challenge you can resolve. It's kind of a little bit, think about that. We try to build Newton's so-called premier district or premier community. And certainly education system played a big role why Newton is Newton today. And I would say 50 years ago when Newton's school system started the education reform and innovation last century with a lot of Harvard and top university support, all that. And but now, I could say a lot of Asian families moved to Newton because of the education system. The challenge is now, as you noted, that those mansions, even though you can build a lot of mansions, but does not mean the families will bring kids to the public school system. And that's a challenge. And I did not know that, by the way. When I was running for school committee, and someone asked me this question, how do you handle with all those development? All the kids come here, and now can school system handle all this influx of students? And I thought that question was a little bit personal, because that person must know I came from a different country and asked me this question. And I did not know how to answer that question, to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And a good thing is our Steve Siegel, our vice school committee chair, he answered that question for me on the Village 13. Now we no longer have that.
Right.
And but the ironic thing is, with all the development, student enrollment, as you alluded,
Still going down.
almost close to 1%, but not 1% yet, especially for the past few years. And predict in the following 5-10 years, still going down, even with all those approved.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned that it's so expensive. If parents, family can afford that kind of apartment, they will think.
Right.
Well,
there's still a lower birth rate. I mean, there are other factors that are contributing to this, but Newton's extremely high cost of living and lack of diverse housing opportunity is certainly playing into it, because we know that in Watertown, they've developed a lot of housing. What it looks like is irrelevant. They've developed a lot of housing. They've allowed it to happen. And so they've had plenty of money for their schools. They had to add a kindergarten class last year. And you know, just think about that. I mean, that's not a terrible burden on their city budget.
Right now.
Right. In fact, it brings more people in who contribute more to the community. You know, we're talking about just a moderately increased density in certain places would help our city budget quite a bit.
I understand that for Watertown and Waltham, there are a lot of business, commercial properties.
Yes,
so
because they have the housing
they don't
to
need
support
to
it.
have the override, because with such a strong commercial, in Watertown, if you pass through the Mount Auburn street and the so many buildings, commercial and apartment.
Well, they have more opportunity for commercial development, but I think the point about having the housing to support it is really important, because I know a lot of our city leaders talk about the need for more commercial development in the city of Newton. A, we don't have a lot of land area that's zoned for that. B, though, and perhaps more importantly, and I know one of your next guests is Greg Reibman, and he can speak to this, because we've been to many chamber events where we've heard from businesses large and small about what it takes for them to decide to locate in the city of Newton versus somewhere else. And a decision point is about, you know, what talent can they attract? And the talent that they can attract depends on whether the cost of living and the housing opportunity is available to them and their families. So it's all levels of business, right? You hear restaurateurs talking about not being able to get enough wait staff, but on the other hand, you might hear from an engineering company who decides to move somewhere else so that their employees, who might be, you know, ready to have a family and kids and stuff like that, they want housing opportunity, and they don't want to spend $2 million for their
But
house.
I do want to emphasize another point from school
We
committee's
have about
perspective.
15 seconds on
Okay, 15. So basically, what I'm arguing during the override is important. Many parents sent letter to us, say we sacrifice so much to buy property in Newton so our kids can go to Newton school system. But now you guys saying there's not enough money, and you have to cut all the programs, lay off the teachers. And so in that sense, I want to emphasize, take this opportunity, the wonderful good school system, as I noted in previous argument, will make the committee, you know, what Newton, the reputation. Why people love the Newton? Because of school system.
Right.
Of course, there's other things, Garden City, but, but school system number one, especially during the past 20 years, I will argue why so many Asian parents, Asian families moved to Newton, because Newton has wonderful reputation. So we need to work hard, even though many parents probably send their kids to private school, but if school system suffers, whole community will suffer. So so in that sense, I think it's important to keep in mind if we decide to have override again, and that's
see what
mostly
happens.
for the school system.
Yes.
And we have no time to discuss the 2 elementary schools, which are losing the students. And parents are concerned if they close school. So
Thanks, Anping.
I'm sorry. Now I'm
You went
getting
longer
to,
than
I
15
warm up
seconds.
now. I'm ready to talk.
I know.
So, okay.
I didn't know
thank
you
you
were
both.
such a talker.
Thank you
Well.
both, Deb and Anping, for joining me tonight. Of course, it was way too short, but it was nice to see you both.
Well, thank you for your invite. And,
Up next, we have President of the Charles River Regional Chamber, Greg Reibman, and current Ward 8 City Councilor-at-Large Rick Lipof, who will be joining me in the studio. And once again, we go back out on the streets where we spoke with voters about what changes, if any, would they like to see in Newton.
Sure. Well, I think it is a challenging time for our city. I think, like many municipalities, I think we're struggling financially with all the post-COVID inflation. Just the reality, we're in a state with Proposition 2.5, which limits property tax increases. I think, and we're seeing that in our ability to, can maintain our roads, to maintain the quality of our schools. So I think the challenge facing our city is with limited money. How are we going to fund the services that so many Newton residents expect, and what makes Newton a great city?
Would you like to see made in Newton?
Overall, I think Newton is just a wonderful community to live in. I think the biggest changes, again, is back to that idea of targeted housing, is to try and be better at serving people who are not at the high end of the socioeconomic scale, or taking care of those who are most in need, but to target the in-between residents of this city.
I would like to see
is
the
me
mayor
talking.
be a less powerful position than it is in Newton. I'd like to see budgets, for example, require an approval by the council.
So I think we touched on, changes in Newton a lot. I think there need to be some development bylaws that need to change. I'm not anti-development. I believe development is key and important, and every community should always realize that development and redevelopment are key tenets in any municipality, no matter your size, whether it's a tiny community or whether it's a large community like Newton of 80 to 90,000 people. So doing so responsibly and making sure that the outcome is what was anticipated and what is being achieved measurably is what needs to happen. I think that the zoning board, the planning board, the historic commission, and the mayor's office and all of the city departments need to have a more comprehensive review of exactly what the policies that are in place, whether they be city administrative policies or whether they be local bylaws or zoning laws or state laws, and how those things are impacting the local residents, whether it is a positive net affect or whether it's hurting or harming more than it's doing good. And at the moment, I think those things are clear to some of us that the effect of development right now is harming current residents more than it's helping them. You're creating more units, but you're completely changing the dynamic of who those residents are. That's disproportionately affecting more economically challenged families and more racially and culturally diverse families than this city's values should be doing, because we are a progressive city and we do believe in helping those who have not historically been helped as much. And if that is the case, we need to look at the results of what's going on in the city now.
All right, welcome back to Decision 2025, Newton's election night coverage. I'm Jenn Adams, and joining me in the studio is Ward 8 City Councilor-at-Large Rick Lipof and President of the Charles River Regional Chamber, Greg Reibman. As always, it's a pleasure to have you both.
Thanks for having us, Jen.
Yes. So let's talk. We'll start talking about some of those results once we get more coming in. But for now, I'd like to at least show a video that we've done for you that actually was of us back in 2001.
Oh my God.
It was my first interview with you for that election. And yes, it's quite interesting because I was only an intern at NewTV at that time, and we would hold these events at City Hall. So we would have Bert Mumolo at the time as the news director, and went over to City Hall. So this is the video that I found just recently for you.
Thanks a lot, Bert. I'm here with Richard Lipof from Ward 8, Alderman at Large. Mr. Lipof, how have things been going for you campaign-wise?
I guess they're going okay. The results look pretty good. I'm slightly ahead of the candidate right behind me, Mitch Fishman. It's been a weird campaign for me. I've had a lot going on in my life, and it's been very difficult to campaign, but I've tried to get out and see the people and do what I need to do to get my message across. And it's just sitting back and waiting and seeing the results now.
What is your main message that you'd like to get across?
As my cell phone rings in my pocket from my wife at home, the main message I'd like to get across is that I love the job. This is my 4th term I'm running for. Every term I feel like I'm building up more steam. I love serving the city. I love being a part of what goes on in this city. And I'd like to continue to represent the people of my ward and the city at large into the future. I really enjoy public service and not just dealing with my own life, but dealing with other people's lives as well.
I know it has been a difficult time for you, and I'm just curious as to how your father is doing at the moment.
My father's doing okay. He would have loved to have been here tonight. He's at home watching the results on TV. He was very fortunate to run unopposed, and I'm actually down here tonight to gather the numbers for him, to bring them back to him, to show all the support that he has garnered over the years as a fantastic elected official in this city. Everybody that I've seen today out on the campaign trail, the first question is, how is your father doing? How is your mother doing? And there's nothing more the son wants to hear than people to ask how his parents are doing, and the great praise that my father has got for his political career over the years. It's been great.
Thank you very much. Best wishes to you and your family.
Thank you.
That was very special. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for that. Are you Barbara Walters? Are you trying to make me cry? Oh.
It's funny, I saw that earlier, and I
think
kind of...
it's so cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I saw that, and I had to share it, and I had to share it with everyone.
Well, thank you. That's special, and I was not expecting that. That's such a great memory. And
Yeah.
you were an intern.
I was just an intern at that point. Yeah, that was...
Thank you. Thank you.
So,
and they
yeah,
had
that
cell
was-
phones in those days. I had no idea.
It was probably a flip phone, I think. It was a flip
yeah.
phone, yes.
It was a flip phone, for sure. So I'm not sure if we're going out to the field yet, because I know that over at District 118, there are quite a few people hanging out there. But before we do that, I guess we do have some results we can talk about. So let's throw them up and see what we've got. These are for the school committee for Ward 2. Looks like Linda Swain has pretty much taken that one over. While these are not official final numbers, but pretty close, but 66% is pretty good. Over at the Ward 4 Councilor at Large, Josh Krinsman is the incumbent, and John Shamanis is currently getting the second with 32%. So now we'll go over to the Ward 5 School Committee, and Ben Schlesinger has 61% over Jenna Mayara, so that's moving right along right there. I'm not sure who else. Oh, and then we've got Councilor at Large for Ward 6. Looks like Lisa Gordon and Sean Roach have taken over Ted Gross with 50 and 30% respectively. And over at the School Committee for Ward 6, Jonathan Green has 65% over Molly Brote, which is, I guess we'll talk about these in a minute once they're all through. For the School Committee for Ward 8, Victor Lee has just about 75% over Jim Murphy. And I think, what do we have for mayor? Okay, so Marc Laredo has pretty much 85% over Al Cecchinelli. And do we have the question? I'm curious if we have that. And right now we're at 50. This is kind of neck and neck right here, 54%. And we've got 45% for yes. So I guess.
No surprises.
No surprises?
I guess I'm not sure about the off the street parking. You know,
nobody knew how that was.
But in general, there probably are not a lot of surprises there. It seems to
kind of fell into where you guys were thinking this would go.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Full disclosure, I'm chair of Victor Lee's campaign.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm very happy about that result.
But I guess my only question is, I don't know what percent of the vote is in the city.
The city, yeah.
It's still a little slow coming in here, but so
Yes,
there's some time.
I've
I think
noticed
everybody
that
should
too.
know that there is a chance that some of these numbers will change. And there really were. I mean, obviously this is the year. The story was all about the school committee races. There's really only 2 city council races that were really in question, I think, in terms of what might happen. 2 city council races. But the school committee races came down a lot to endorsements, it looks like. And it does appear that the endorsements there, which were lined up as kind of the school teachers union aligned side and the side that was aligned with apparent mayor-elect, the mayor-elect side appears to have prevailed, across the board there, at least so far.
It looks like we're getting ready to go to Marc Laredo, who at 85% of the vote is going to, I guess, talk with the people who are at District 118. So I'm not sure if he's quite ready yet, but we'll go there.
Mayor-elect Marc Laredo will be the next mayor of Newton, January 1st, 2026.
Welcome. Before we begin the festivities tonight, this is a somber time here in the city, and I want to take a minute to reflect on the sudden passing of Mayor Setti. I think all of us were shocked and saddened to learn of Mayor Warren's passing this weekend. As I think almost all of you know, he leaves his wife Cassie, his 2 children, Abigail and John. And I had the privilege of serving with Setti for 6 years when I was in the city council and he was serving as mayor. And when I think of Setti, I always think of his ready smile. He always had a smile on his face. And his energy, and his warmth, and his true love for the city of Newton. And Setti Warren will be remembered for having tremendous accomplishments here, not only in Newton, but in the world beyond this city. And so I'd ask for a moment of silence, please, as we reflect on his life and our thoughts are with his family. Thank you. So, this is the part of any event where you have to acknowledge the elected officials. And as elected officials know, you've got to get this right. This is the single most important thing I do all night. You no one cares what I say, but if I screw up your name, you're in trouble. So I am going to start with our Congressman, Jake Auchincloss. With Jake when he was a rookie city councilor for Ward 2. I also mispronounced his name for probably 6 months until he finally said to me, you're getting it wrong. But truly, Jake has been an absolute wonderful person for us at the federal level. He represents us so effectively. I'm so proud to have him as my congressman. Jake, thank you so much for being here. You don't do government work on your own. We have a terrific state delegation. State Senator Cindy Crane, who's our majority leader. State Representative Greg Schwartz, my former colleague. And we have a terrific district attorney, Marion Ryan, right over there. We have the district attorney from Middlesex County really is an extraordinarily hard job. It's one of the largest counties, the largest county in the state, but one of the largest in the country. And she leads a team of prosecutors that do a great job day in and day out to keep us safe and to ensure that we have justice in Middlesex County. So thank you so much, Randy. All right, this is the hard part because I got to remember 24 city councilors. Now, some of you think that's too many. I happen to disagree, but I'll do my best to remember them. But before I do, I really just want to say a word of thanks because when you do work at the local government level, it really is the most basic type of work you can do. You're out many times, you miss dinners, you're away from your family, you may have financial sacrifice to do the job, and yet my present and former colleagues, day in and day out, do the work, and it's not glamorous, let's be honest. It's not glamorous work you do, but it's critically important. So I'm going to try to remember everyone I have here. I know from Ward 2, I have Councilor Mickley, I have Councilor Ruthanne, I have former Councilor Norton, from Ward 4, I have Councilor Randall Block, and you can tell me if I'm missing something, okay? From Ward 5, I have former Councilor John Rice. From Ward 7, I have Councilor Becky Grossman, Councilor Bob Baker, and I have to say a special word for Councilors Baker and Grossman. You know, when you're one of 3 councilors from a ward, you really have to work together as a team. And Lyle and Becky epitomize what teamwork is all about. I'm incredibly grateful to them. Thank you. Tony Vitolo, our state representative. Tony, you're always welcome to the city of Newton. And from Ward 8, I have David Kalis, the Vice President of City Council. And from the school committee, I have Paul Levy from Ward 6. Tell me who I missed, and I'll be forgiven. All right, I've done that part of the job.
Martha Bixby.
Oh, Martha Bixby, Ward Council, Ward 6. So look, you know, there's people tonight. We have newly elected colleagues in the City Council. We have newly elected colleagues in the school committee. And for all of them, I'm really grateful and looking forward to serving with each and every one of them. But you know, there are people who are here tonight who did not prevail. But nevertheless, they have done a tremendous service to our community by running for office. Any one of us who's ever run for office knows how hard it is. And so we should all be grateful for them. And I am particularly grateful to Al Cecchinelli. Al and I do not agree on virtually any political issue, but we do share something. We share a deep and abiding love of this city. And Al ran an issues-oriented, positive campaign. Whenever we did an appearance together, it was friendly, it was cordial. There's multiple pictures of us all over the place taking our picture together. And that's what democracy is about. So I am very So look, it's been over 18 months since I decided to embark on this quest to be your next mayor. And you don't get there without a lot of folks helping you along the way, including every single person in this room. But it truly starts off with your family. My wife, Roberta, who's here, wasn't lucky. We've been married for 41 years now, and for over half of that, she's put up with my involvement in civic life, whether it's missing a dinner, late meetings, emails or telephone calls interrupting things, or even worse, going to Shaw's or Wegmans and having someone determined to talk to you about the latest issue in your mind. Not fun for any political style. And we're also so lucky to have 3 wonderful, healthy, happy children, 2 of whom are not here tonight. One's in Chicago, one's in college in Michigan. But our son Matt's here. New York graduate. Joanna, who's also a New York grad, have done the single best thing we can ever do as a kid, which is produce a grandchild. And so we're very fortunate to have a 1-year-old granddaughter. So look, in addition to my family, which is really where you start with these things, I had a small, really fabulous inner team. I just want to take a moment to just thank all of them. I don't know if Matt Hills is here yet. Is he here yet? Matt is my longtime friend. We've been friends for 30 years since our kids went to kindergarten together in one school. He's been my treasurer for over 2 decades, and he's kept me out of trouble. Because one thing you can do in political life that lands you in hot water is mess around with how you keep your finances. And Matt has been scrupulous about that. But more importantly, time and time again, has given me valuable advice and valuable feedback. Emily Norton, where are you, Emily? All right. Emily Norton. I gotta tell you, if you're ever in a fight, you want Emily in your life. She's tough, she's determined, she's got terrific political instincts. Where's Paul? Paul Levy, school committee member for Ward 6. As many of you know, Paul has a distinguished career running 2 institutions, MWRA and Beth Israel, and was kind enough to give his wisdom and perspective to our inner team, which was invaluable. So thank you, Paul. Lisa will be one of our new Ward 6 councilors. 2 other people I need to mention. I don't think Ali made it here yet, but Ali is a wonderful friend of my son Josh's. But more importantly, Ali is a brilliant political strategist who has been instrumental in helping my campaigns, and I know his work for a number of other campaigns in the city. And last, but certainly not least, John Rice. The single most popular member of the City Council. Hands down, way ahead of me. And why? Because people like John. They don't just like John, they love John. And that's because John is calm and thoughtful and genuine and gets the job done. And John during the campaign was the one who suggested and was instrumental in getting his videos. He's organized every single event, including this one. And I'm not ready to announce my new administration yet, but I'm going to make an exception. John, and this is no secret in this community, John is going to be the new Chief Community Services Officer for the city. I am remarks and we'll let everyone else have a good time. Number 1, we had an advisory team during the course of this campaign that met on a regular basis to give me advice on a variety of issues. It was a wonderful forum to test out ideas. Who served on the advisory committee? Just raise your hand, please. Thank you so much. We float it out there, and then they might say, Mark, that's really stupid. Don't do it. And we listen. Quite seriously, that's the kind of involvement we are going to continue to have. Because I want this advisory committee, this advisory group to live on well after January 1st. The final group of people I want to thank are my interns. If you're an intern, stand up, raise your hand. Our interns were led by three terrific young people. Risha Sinha, Zach Gonderman, and Emily's son, Jack Norton. And each one of these three, I can assure you, you're going to either be working for or voting for one day. But probably the most impressive people in the campaign were the interns. Where's I? Freshmen at New North. I didn't know my way to the building when I was a freshman, okay? In fact, back then you were still in junior high, and it was 9th grade. They have been absolutely wonderful. They knocked on doors, they staffed events, they did all the back office stuff you need to do, and they were incredibly perceptive. On more than one occasion, the intern would come to me and say, you know, Mark, that didn't go that well. Here's how you can do it better. That is incredibly gutsy for a young person to be able to say and do. You all are terrific. I am so excited that you are part of the team, and I see great things ahead for all of you. So a round of applause for our interns. So look, I'm going to have a lot more time in Jenn in the coming weeks to make some announcements about what I'm going to do. And I hope you'll be here on January 1st for Inauguration Day. But I just want to say a couple things about what I'm going to start doing day one. And we're actually starting it right now. You know, when I go around the city and when I knock on doors, here's something that's really self-evident. People like living in Newton. They like living in Newton. In fact, they love living in Newton. Sure, they'll complain about the schools, and they'll complain about their pothole, and they'll complain about the trash, and they'll complain about noise, and they'll complain about construction. You get a lot of complaints when you knock on doors, but when you ask people what they think about the city, they love living here, and they want to stay here. Boy, that's a great base to build upon. A great base to build upon. So what are we going to do as our new administration? Number one, it's going to be a team approach. You do not do this job as a single person. And we are putting together a brand new team with a whole bunch of folks who are staying from Mayor Fuller's office, for whom I'm really grateful. But we are going to have a terrific team in place. Second, we are going to function with ethically and with integrity. And we're going to do that every day. We're going to be honest with you. We're going to be clear. We're going to be transparent. And when we make a mistake, and believe me, we will make mistakes, we're going to own it. We're going to admit it. We're going to tell you about it. We're going to fix it. And we're going to figure out how we do better the next time. Third thing I pledge to do, we are going to listen. Just like I listened to the advisory group, just like I listened to people when I was in their living rooms or knocking on their doors. We, and I mean we, it's not just going to be me, but my team is going to be out in the community all the time, listening to what people's concerns are. And finally, from me down, every single person who works for the city is going to remember that they have 90,000 employers, and we work for the residents, and we are going to have a customer service focused way of delivering things. I want people to know when they call or write City Hall, they may not get every solution, but they're going to get a prompt response, and there's going to be follow-up, and we are going to do it right. So, thank you all so much. I am incredibly grateful. Let's have an enjoyable night. It's fun. Thank you.
All right, I guess we're going to go over to Gina Dacey, who's with Cecchinelli right now. Gina, take it away.
the most part. I have had a little bit of hate from people because I am a Republican. And I did have a slow start because I had a non-cancerous brain tumor removed. And while in the hospital, I got an infection in my foot and I lost a toe. So I was 2.5 months off of the campaign trail. But once I was back, I hit my stride and I talked to a lot of people, and most of them were nice. I only had to call the police twice at events, and I think that for a whole, the citizens of Newton are pretty good.
Can you tell me about some of the issues or policies that are most important to you?
Well, the most important thing to me are schools, education. Sorry. In Newton, when I graduated in 1982, we were the 5th best school system in the country. Now we're not even the 5th best in Massachusetts. I think we need to strive for that excellence. I think Dr. Nolan is a wonderful start, but we need to get the money for the schools into the classrooms so that we have the best and brightest teachers we can get for our students. I think that's one of our biggest obligations. I also think that we need to increase our infrastructure, not decrease it. The narrowing of the roads, the taking out lanes, when we're trying to increase the population. Right now we have 2,300 housing units being built, and they're all going to bring cars. We have the possibility of another 9,000 units being built because of the MBTA Communities Act and the Village Center overdevelopment plan that they put in. Where are these people going to go? We need our infrastructure. We don't need to be bottlenecked and have congestion. And a lot of people talk to me about the road conditions. It seems like that's one of the biggest concerns of Newton residents. And I don't think that there's any reason that we can't fill the potholes. But it's something we have to work on.
What are your thoughts on the winter parking ban?
I think the winter parking ban should stay until we have a plan to replace it. When I'm elected, I hope to get a commission made up of citizens and public safety officials where we can go through and decide where it's safe and feasible to have overnight winter parking, use a permit program to keep it for Newton residents, because if you're close to a property line, a city border with another town that doesn't have that parking, they're just going to walk another 2 blocks to park to avoid having to pay to park somewhere else. So I think we should keep it for now. Another reason is right now, developers are getting special permits not to have the proper amount of parking for their buildings that are in our zoning code. I think we need to make special permits special again and not make it so that every developer that comes in and says, well, I need a special permit because I want to make another $100,000 on this project, that shouldn't be a reason to get a special permit. We need to save it for people that need to add ancillary apartments on the back of their houses, that need handicap ramps, that would be too close to the property line. We need to keep those special permits and get rid of the other ones where it's just about people making money.
Is there anything you'd like to say to your opponent or to the community?
Well, I'd like to thank Marc Laredo for running a clean race. He was always personable. I mean, we've known each other for probably 20, 25 years. He was a gentleman, and I appreciate that. We do have differences, but we have a lot of things in common that we want for this city. I know that I love this city, and I felt that Marc does too. So I'd like to thank him for a clean race. And there's always a position in my administration for you. And I'd like to thank all my supporters and the people that helped me out. I really appreciate it. I ran a grassroots campaign. If you check with the OCPF, I spent a fraction of what my opponents spent. I had a fraction of the people helping me. And I appreciate everyone that came out to support me.
Thank you so much for your time, Al. Back to you, Jen.
All right, thanks a lot, Gina and Al. And congratulations to Marc Laredo. He is officially Newton's next mayor.
Yeah, so can I say, I probably didn't agree with anything Al said policy-wise there, but I'm glad the guy ran. You know, it's nice to at least have another name on the ballot, so I'm appreciative of that and the fact that he will probably do it again in 4 years. But congratulations to Marc Laredo for, you know, clearly, you know, the one thing I'll give him a lot of credit for, he ran like he was in a competition. He really did work, and he was out there making sure he met people and, you know, being present at everything. So give him credit for actually campaigning and letting people get to know him before tonight.
Yeah, and we got to support, you know, you have to support who's in that corner office. You can have differences, but you want the mayor to be successful for the best of the city.
All right. So I guess we'll have some results coming up on the screen momentarily. I know that the city has not put in all of the precincts as of yet, but as you can see, Marc Laredo did win 85% of the vote for the mayor of Newton. So obviously he will be inaugurated on January 1st. For the school committee from Ward 2, 60% will go to Linda Swain over Christine Fisher at
Can I just make one note there? So
yes.
What's interesting about Christine Fisher is I think she's the only candidate in any contested race who was not endorsed by either side or political line. She really was out there hanging on her own. She didn't get the teachers endorsement or the anti-teachers union endorsement, however you want to characterize it. She was the one candidate who was unendorsed by anybody and still got 40% of the vote.
Right. Yep. That's interesting.
I got to tell you, kudos to everybody who steps up and says, here I am, I want to serve. I've done it for a long time. It's not easy. It's a lot of time away from your family. You take hits, but it's your way of saying, I'm willing to work for you on behalf of what's best for our community. So every person who ran tonight, my hat is off to. And I'm excited for a lot of the new people that are coming in. You know, so there have been years where we have said we can't find anybody to run. People were disgusted at what was going on, or their lives were too busy. So this was an interesting cycle.
And up next for Ward 4, Councilor-at-Large. This race is getting close, but the unofficial votes that are out there. This one currently has John, Seamus, and Cyrus kind of neck and neck, and actually the unofficial results, not the official unofficial results, actually claim that Cyrus and Josh will move forward.
This is the only city council race other than the Ward 5 race that was really questionable because it was actually a competition that seemed significant, and I don't think we know the final results yet.
No, we have some, you know, there were campaigns that collect along the way. And like you said, unofficial, it looks like Cyrus may have won, but we will have to wait and see.
Right, yes, of course, we'll have to wait for the official results when they come in and are certified, obviously. That will make sense. All right, let's move on to the next one. We've got Ward 5, Ward Councilor, 60-40 split. Julie Irish moving on over Gary Miller.
And this is interesting. You have two Upper Falls activists who are well known in those communities running, and they both ran a good, I think generally probably a positive campaign and really worked hard and knocked on doors. I happen to live in Ward 5 and saw them a lot and their supporters a lot, and I give them credit for really just kind of really doing what a ward contest should be, and it's too bad we didn't have more competitive ward contests, really getting out and knowing people in the neighborhood and talking about those issues.
Two good candidates. There were a lot of races that had two good candidates.
Yeah, there were. Next, school committee for Ward 5, 57-42 with Ben Schlesinger moving over Jenna Miara. So what about that race? I mean, two newbies coming on.
Yes, yet again, I full disclosure, I endorsed Ben, and Jenna is fantastic. Molly, who I don't think is going to move on. There was a lot of good candidates out there, and when you look at a race and you can support one and vote for one, but also feeling that if things went the other way, the city would be in good shape. That's one that everybody felt that way about. Ben's moving forward, which, you know, I think is a good thing.
All right, who do we have next on our list? of contested races. The Ward 6 Councilor at Large, 45% goes to Lisa Gordon, Ted Gross at 20%, and Sean Roach at 34%. So
And-
pretty much Lisa and Sean will move on, and that one's pretty much set, I would think.
Yep.
That
There couldn't be two more different personalities and at different ends of the spectrum, perhaps. And we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how they all work together in that ward.
Yeah, actually it will be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right, next up, we've got school committee for Ward 6. And as you were saying, Molly, so John Green, just about 60%, with Molly getting 40%. So
Yep.
another newbie.
Yep.
And for the Ward 8 school committee, Victor Lee at just about 70%, with Jim Murphy at 30%.
That's it. Victor ran a great campaign. I didn't run his campaign, I was his chair, but I've never seen a new candidate work as hard as he did. His coverage throughout the city, the fact that he got every endorsement from every seated politician, elected official.
That's quite a feat.
Yeah,
actually.
and it's because he's a smart, independent guy that he resonated with all corners, and he's going to be great. He's going to be great. Very smart. A lot of experience. Yeah.
It's going to be tough next year,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, it is, and we need people like him on
Who can do it.
on the school committee. Yeah.
All right, for the parking ban, we're getting closer to a 50-50 split here, with the repeal not happening as of right now, with 50.7%, and a yes vote of 49.3%.
But there's still quite a few votes out in a couple.
Still missing, yeah, from the city,
So I
so
think we don't
we're-
know about this one.
It's too close to call right
Yeah,
now.
right.
Yeah.
But I guess I'd say, to me, this one is interesting because it doesn't cross the same political lines that every other contest seemed to. Which side was on, and so it's just interesting to see people who feel about it, how much they understood the issue,
and are willing to work in the future together to
Yeah.
figure out something. To
Yeah.
me, that was.
Right. But ballot referendums are tough because in my mind, and I'd love to hear what you think, to me it seems like this was forced by citizens because the city council could never decide how to address this issue and what the right solution was. It was before you many, many times, many years, and never would. And so some group of citizens stood up and said, we want to have a referendum on this.
Absolutely. It was not, public safety, 24 counselors. We couldn't come to it. I was in favor of repealing the ban, and I typically don't like referendum questions, especially when they were on Northland and on very complicated special permits. It's just people can't get their heads around the complexities, and it becomes for and against in a very black and white way. This one, I was all for a referendum, because if we couldn't do it ourselves, I thought it was pretty clear and a straightforward question to put in front of the electorate, and I think that that this one was valid. I have heard from people that it was a little confusing the way it was written, and some people went in and said, the ban, I want to keep it, I'll vote yes, when they were actually voting the wrong way. And that happens conversely, where I don't want the ban anymore, I'll vote no. It'll be interesting to talk to some people afterwards to see if they voted accurately. I've heard from a lot of people they were confused.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But there's nothing we can do. This is the process. That's how it was written.
So this one being just a ward only, and Ward 5 is, and the winner is Julie Irish. So yes, she'll be the next Ward 5 ward councilor. I know that we do have some uncontested races that are out there, people that are automatically in that are new. For instance, Brittany Hume-Charm for at-large at Ward 2, Brian Golden for City Councilor-at-Large for Ward 7, Jacob Silber at-large for Ward 8, Ariana Proya for the School Committee for Ward 1, and Jason Bardwaj for School Committee for Ward 3. So uncontested newcomers, new faces on the City Council as well as the School Committee, which basically the School Committee is brand new except for 2 people.
Yeah.
So,
So
even the mayor.
and if I could talk just about the 3 city councilors for a minute.
Yeah.
So they couldn't be more different from each other, and it will be really interesting to see what they did. And the one thing they didn't have to do, although they're supporters, some people may have aligned, was they didn't have to align with anybody. So they really could come in there instead of being indebted to someone who endorsed them or mad at someone who didn't endorse them. They really can go in there and be independent. And with such a divided city council, it looks like we're going to be really just as close as we ever were in terms of, which supporter, how divided our city councils. They could really be a decider. They could be someone that could help create some middle ground that we've been missing in Newton.
It could. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, who they are and.
Brian Golden's just particularly, I think, unique because he's had decades of experience in the city of Boston running a very large planning organization for under 2 different mayors, and so he has a wealth of experience and perspective that generally we don't see in our elected bodies because he's, a couple cases in this council race, we have outsiders or people who lived elsewhere bringing new ideas here.
So we've got, I guess, a few more votes in for the parking ban repeal, and it seems to be about the same, 50.6% to 49.4%.
It doesn't look like it's moving that much, yeah.
It's literally 50-50. So as you said, this will be interesting going forward, which way it actually ends up, and then how people will deal with that. If the yes vote, you still have to figure out what you're going to do because certain people do need to park. And obviously, if it's not, people are still going to be angry that it hasn't been repealed and want to have something done.
Yeah, this is not overwhelming one way or the other. Want to take victory, but they better be soft about it because it's not going to be a huge one. What I've told people about if we repeal it, one of the reasons to repeal it is that we can look at those troubled areas and through the traffic council take care of it. But the majority of the city doesn't need to not park on the street from 2 to 6 for 120 days in the winter when we have 10 to 20 days of snow emergency. And if there's a snow emergency, you will get a ticket and you must move your car. So the same way I said, well, we can deal with that. If we don't repeal it, then I think that people should come in and ask for certain reliefs where they need it, and we need to give it to them.
Has that been a problem to have those relief parking spots? Because I've heard through the grapevine that municipal spots sometimes aren't available, or
that's right. It's inconvenient.
Or far away.
Yeah, every day for 4 months you got to go, and get your car before you bring your kids to school. It's a 1936 law.
That's when it was, yeah.
Before we had robocalls and meteorologists that really got it right. It's really not necessary now, and we're just going to have to deal with it after, or the new council will have to deal with it.
All right, we've got some results from the Ward 8 School Committee. And as you said, probably this most likely is a given that Victor Lee has won it with just about 70%.
Jen, just to know, what I'm seeing is that we've got some of Ward 3 that's still outstanding, part of Ward 5 and part of Ward 6.
There's still some 5 and 6?
Are missing.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
If I'm reading this right, yes.
You are. I'm reading it as well.
Yeah.
4 precincts are missing, so pretty much.
So those close contests are still.
They're still.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still have to wait for those results to actually come in. But yeah, the no vote still seems to be winning, at least through the city website. So, Rick, you are stepping down from city council. What's next for you?
What's next? It's going to be a little bit of me time, which is never something I got to over the years.
Have you ever done that?
No, it's always been family, business, politics, and then my own time. And I've always shelved that because the things that I did were gratifying, were full, were, I'm doing this all for, for others and for good reason. So I'll kind of shelve my own time. But it's not as much as me wanting my own free time. It's after 24 years of serving, it needs to feel like the first day of school when you take your papers out. And because I've been doing some new things, I'm on the board of directors of the Holocaust Museum that we're building down on Tremont Street on the Freedom Trail right across from the State House.
Great.
And that's taking time, fundraising. I've gotten involved after October 7th with the AJC. My focus has moved to some different things, and for the first time, the council didn't feel like it was in first place with my focus, and I needed to listen to myself, and it took me a while to make that decision because I love this community. I love to serve, and after 24 years to make that decision, it was tough. And I made it. Late in the game, I just said this just isn't for me in this moment. I leave the door open for any future run if I feel differently and my life has that in the cards, but for now I'm taking a break and I'm looking forward to it. I will never not be involved in this community. When I left for 6 years, when my wife got breast cancer, needs to be home with the kids more, I ended up chair of the election commission, chair of the Angino Fund. That wasn't as much time, but it kept me involved in my community. And I'm not going anywhere, and I'm going to lead in other ways, comment, and I'm actually working on something to bring additional revenue to the city that I'll be talking about later in the future.
Okay.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So we're going to have 7 or 8, and looks like since Josh Krinsman looks like he's headed to re-election, 7 new city councilors. What do they need to know when they start their job? It's got to take a while to find your way around.
What I always tell new people is don't speak for 6 months. I really do that. And for 2 reasons. There is so much to learn in process and how things go. And there's something about the respect of listening to people who've been there before and wading into it slowly instead of coming out great guns. That's one of the things I say. And the other thing I would say to all of them now is you have an opportunity and strength as a new group to end this divisive, partisan us and them about issues the big issues that matter to our city, and get back to how it was years ago where we can disagree, but we would move together and put something forward that moved the city forward. And not, we're just blocking whatever you want because we don't agree. This new group has the opportunity to work that way and to change the dialogue and change the tone on the council.
So their first decision is going to be to help to elect a new city council president who really does set the tone for that. So what's the advice to the new city councilors and how to evaluate who the right city council president is?
I'd love them to pick somebody that's not pressed up against an edge, that is somebody that is well respected and listened to by all. And I would say to them, pick very carefully. And the way you pick your president also, people don't realize this. They're a heartbeat away from the mayor's office. One heartbeat away. Something happens to our mayor, the president of the council becomes mayor. So when you vote, don't vote for your friend. Don't vote for somebody because they have the votes. Make sure it's somebody that you can picture in that corner office. And that's something that I always looked at.
Very good.
All right, we're coming up with results from Ward 4, Councilor-at-Large. And I'd say this one is definitely a close race. But it looks like we're still missing 4 from the city, but as we mentioned before, the unofficial gave it to Cyrus and Josh.
And you know what, I love to see that large number for Josh Krinsman. He's a great counselor, a hard worker, great sense of humor.
I was going to add that. I'm glad you did.
Yeah, always. And a good friend, and the city's lucky to have him, and I just love to see people pulling the lever for him.
So Greg, in terms of businesses in the community, we've got to at least bring the chamber into effect. One thing that I noticed that you put out the other day was the gift card give back program.
Oh, sure.
You want to talk a little bit about that?
I would love to talk about that. So we are, even in well-off Newton, have many people who are dependent on SNAP benefits, people who are, and they're generally our children, people with disabilities, seniors, who depend on the SNAP benefits, and the federal cut or the freeze to those benefits, or getting half of them, is just decimating to these people. I mean, and we're in a place where we should be able to feed people. We cannot do a lot of things. We ought to be able to provide the basic need for food. So more than 20 chamber restaurants have gotten together, and they said we will donate up to 25% of any gift card that we sell online or in our restaurant between now and just before Thanksgiving. And that will go directly to Spoonfuls, which is a Newton company that delivers fresh food to our food pantries for those who need them, and they need them at this moment. So really proud of the restaurants that stepped up to do this.
So holiday shopping, go in and
You
get
could do
your
your
gift
holiday
cards.
shopping
Go
just
get your
now.
gift cards for your stocking
Right?
stuffers.
Or even if you're on your way out to dinner. Now it's great that the restaurants are willing to do this. We also encourage the public to just give directly to our food pantries. We have 3 of them in town, or give directly to the Boston Food Bank or the United Way or to Spoonfuls, because really the money is going to need it everywhere. This is a crisis, and it's entirely cruel and unfair that we have to be thinking about it.
And they can find those lists of restaurants on the Chamber's
Chamber website. Right on their homepage, you'll be able to find the list of restaurants that are participating, and you'll see there are some really terrific places that people love that are part of this.
That's great.
That is great. Yeah. I'm thinking we're getting closer to the end, but not quite. We're still missing. We've got still 4 precincts missing from the city, so the results have not changed since the last time we brought them up. But obviously we have a new mayor, the Ward 6 contested race, the uncontested. We've got quite a change that's going to happen. What issues should they be focusing on in the future? I know we talked a little bit about some of them, but in terms of the city council, I mean, there's some big stuff that's going to happen, perhaps more federal funds cut. I guess, what should the council, as well as the mayor, be focusing on?
It's going to be finding new money, finding any money. And I think that the discussion of development in our city, it's not just about what I think, and I think you do as well, is the need for the units all over the country. We need them too. But our special permits are off by 40% right now. And that's a ton of money. We get permit money, and then we get new revenue tax growth. That new home, that increase in tax revenue comes is on top of 2.5%. So that's money we rely on year in, year out. And people who don't want development have to understand that you're asking us to cut off also a revenue source. We have 30,000 properties in this city, 21,000 single-family homes. We have 100 to 140 teardowns a year. It's a very small number, but it drives people crazy. And I think we have to look more broadly at it, that it's not something that is a huge number, that is a gigantic issue. It is for some people. But the numbers that come, the income that comes from new development, it is something that we desperately use to our bottom line.
Right. So it's a matter of comfort, compassion too. And we talked about food and thinking about, being able to provide places for our adult children to live in the city they grew up in, being able to help seniors stay in the city where they raised their children and gave so much to. We have so many older folks who are, 1 or 2 people living in a house with 4 or 5 bedrooms, and they want to go somewhere else, or they ought to be given an opportunity to go somewhere else. We need to have compassion for these folks and build the kind of housing that we need to meet the needs of those people, as well as for our teachers and our firefighters and the nurses and the people making our coffee in the morning. They should be part of this community. And only if we agree together that is something we're going to embrace, the idea that we want to make sure there are places for people, will we get to where we need on that.
Well said. Well said. And I think that that's going to be one of the big conversations that's ongoing, that and how do we balance this budget. I do believe that an override has got to come. One of the greatest accomplishments of former Mayor Setti Warren, who we're all thinking about, was that he got one done. And the only way you do that is you bring trust to the corner office. The people need to trust the mayor, they need to trust the council, that what we're doing is honest, that we're working for them, and when we ask them for more tax revenue, that they're going to say yes, and that's going to take a cadre of reasons, so we touch everybody, and everybody has a reason to support it. It's got to be schools, it's got to be roads, it's got to be a lot of things, and we did it once before, and we have to do it again because we're going to get hit from the feds, and 2.5% just isn't enough.
I guess we have an updated result on the parking ban, and it's...
Got some more numbers too.
We got a little bit more no on that one. So it's looking like just by...
And to be clear, no means that the parking ban would remain.
Correct.
Right? So,
yes.
Yeah. So there's no confusion there.
Yeah, so just only two more precincts have not been inserted into the election results as of yet.
It doesn't appear that number is going to change. And
it's going more towards no, at least from the last graphic to the latest one, excuse me. I guess we have another update as well. So yes, Cyrus and Josh are still leading, and
so it was such an interesting difference between these two candidates and their stories, and you know, if this held, if I've got my math right, then John Chimanis would be the only candidate in both the school side or the city council side who was endorsed by Mayor-elect Laredo, who did not prevail. And it does seem to me that if John Chimanis does not prevail, part of it was because of the controversy surrounding his comments on Facebook about trans children several years ago, and you know, but also that Cyrus was a compelling young candidate who worked hard, who represents a different generation and different, and I think he really motivated people. So, you know, it's hard to know exactly which one of those would be the factor, but it is unique in that, you know.
Yes. And I think there was some synergy between the campaigns with Councilor Krinsman and as well, which could have had something to do with the win as well.
Yep. But Krinsman was one of those rare candidates who was endorsed by, I don't want to keep saying both sides, but I think we know what we mean when they say that.
Right.
He was, you know, kind of a consensus candidate for everybody, and then it was divided by those two. Yeah. And, you know, it's whatever that city council is, it's going to be deeply divided, and we talked about it a little before, and you know, it's divided in this city mostly over housing and development, but you can tell us better than anyone else. You make so many decisions that have nothing to do with housing or development or anything, right?
I'm glad you brought that up. I've always said it. There was a post today that somebody said, show me the candidates that during the strike, I won't vote for any of them. To be a one-issue voter, we do so much. We vote on so many things. We work on so many things. To cancel out somebody over one thing, now, if somebody would say, well, this is a big deal. It's not the way that decisions should be made.
Right. And because you make so many different decisions as city councilor, you know, to see the groups of lawn signs, they're almost always together. You never saw like an outlier in somebody's lawn sign. You know, it was either group A or group B in people's lawn signs. And we have to start realizing that there's so many different issues here, and people vote different ways, and you should be selecting candidates for different reasons.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've got nothing to add to that.
There you go.
That was well said. Yeah.
Well, I guess we're going to kind of end things now, even though two precincts have not come in yet, but pretty much the only thing that's right on the edge is that parking ban question.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's leaning more towards sticking around, at least for now. So yes, thank you both for coming, and that will do it for NewTV's Decision 2025. I thank you for joining us. The unofficial results are on the city's website at newtonma.gov, and we'll see you back here in 2 years for the next municipal election. Have a great night, everyone.
Very good.